You know, when you say blight, many people will immediately think of Detroit's problems with abandoned structures, but it really is a problem facing cities across Michigan, and many would argue an obstacle to revitalizing these areas. A big announcement this week brings $100 million to 5 Michigan cities. These bulldozers demolished 5 abandoned, burned-out homes on Turner Street on Detroit's west side on Monday, just the beginning of the largest effort in state history to take on blight. The funds, approved by the U.S. Treasury, come out of the Michigan State Housing Development Authority's Hardest Hit Fund, and that fund is supposed to help homeowners affected by the housing downturn. So here's the breakdown of the money and where it's going. $52 million for Detroit, $20 million for Flint, about $11 million for Saginaw, over $3.5 million for Pontiac, and $2.5 million for Grand Rapids. 4,000 homes in Detroit alone are expected to come down, a total of 7,000 structures statewide. I asked Governor Snyder if he's confident there is a plan in place to make full use of the funds.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a strong deployment. That's why I think MISHDA was a great opportunity to be that clearinghouse, to partner with the city and the federal government. So we're all working together, as opposed to having separate efforts being done different ways. This is about teamwork, and a teamwork that's cooperating with the neighborhood.
It's also important to point out that $10 million will be placed in reserve if you were doing the math along with us there. So first off, finally seeing the feds coordinating with a state effort, do we finally have an effective tool and an effective amount of money to fight blight in the state?
Well, no. I mean, it's going to take something along the lines of $700 million to tear down every structure in Detroit if we continue to do it the same way we've been doing it. I was out to Brightmoor this week where young Bill Pulte is preparing another 14-block area to take down all of the abandoned homes. And I went over a few blocks away where the state and city our blight programs are going on, and they come into a neighborhood with 10 abandoned homes and tear down one and then leave and go to another neighborhood, and it doesn't change the dynamics of the neighborhood. You go to this 14-block area where they've cleared out all of the abandonment, all of the overgrowth, and the neighbors are coming out and saying, look, the gunshots stopped, police came in and cleared out the drug houses. It's got to be a more comprehensive effort, a more targeted effort. And by the way, he's doing it for about half the price the city normally
spends. Well, he's
spends.
trying to do it for half the price that the city normally spends. He hasn't proven out that model quite yet. I mean, he's got ideas, but hasn't really delivered.
Well, they've done it on the east side. They're now doing it.
But the cost is not. I mean, they're not taking out basements. That's a big problem. That's a big difference.
Also, I think an interesting thing about some of the areas that they've targeted in Detroit, and this is not talking about some of the other areas in the state, but they've also worked with the Detroit Future Cities Project to say, okay, now let's be smart about where we're going to be demoing a lot of these homes too, which is an important part of
that's
this
right,
dynamic.
and that is the important part of what Pulte's doing, is saying, look, let's concentrate on one area and do everything there. Don't just knock down one house or two houses. Knock down all of it so that we can have you can have a plan for what comes after. What they did over on the east side, if you go over there, I mean, you can see the possibility for investment now, because there isn't one house here or an overgrown lot there. It's all prepped for something new.
And it's the same in Brightmoor, and they're strategic about it. The neighborhood, the 14 blocks they're doing in Brightmoor, and they're going to move on east, right up against Rosedale Park, one of the nicer areas of the city. So in clearing out this neighborhood and stabilizing or getting rid of the blight in this neighborhood, you help stabilize one of your better neighborhoods, because that blight will creep. And on the east side, it was up against, they're going to go up against
Eastern
Indian
Market
Village and Eastern Market.
Sure.
And you've got to be strategic with it. You can't just keep doing what we've been doing is, here's 10, 12 grand, go tear down one of the 6 abandoned houses on McDougal Street.
Yeah, and I think it's also some interesting use of, or creative funding use, also using it from the Hardest Hit Fund. And now you're starting to try to get that federal funding and put it in those different pockets. It's interesting you say that, because when I was on that street on Monday on Turner Street, I sat and talked to a neighbor who was sitting there, and he was looking across the street, and he said, yeah, I'm really glad that these houses are coming down. I said, well, do you know the rest of your neighbors next door to you and whatnot? He goes, oh, well, there's no one living in the houses next door to me.
Yeah, and that's the point. You can't just you tear down a few and walk away, and you still got the same problem of abandoned homes leading to crime, becoming drug houses, presenting a danger to the people and the children in the community.
Well, you also now have to make sure that these cities that are all involved in this, so we're talking Grand Rapids, Flint, Saginaw, Pontiac, Detroit, that now going back, that they're going to make sure that, yes, we are going to be able to do this with this money in the amount of time that we need to do it, that the money doesn't linger or things get backed up with how you're going to get it done.
Right, and you look at the cities on that map. I mean, look at Pontiac. That is a very key investment in a city that's just come out of emergency management and is ready for investment and some sort of new direction. Getting abandoned houses down there, and $3.5 million is a lot of money to spend in Pontiac on that. That's going to make a huge difference.
And it's important too, though, to involve the community in what happens next. If you don't ask people what are we going to do now with all of this vacant land? How do you want to see your community redeveloped? You're going to be right back in the same problem. You're going to continue to lose people. Out in Brightmoor the other day, you had folks saying, look, we want to do, you had a lady say, we want to build a great big greenhouse. We got 4 lots here, but the city owns a lot here and they won't give it up because, they think someday it's going to be, we're going to have some big plan for it. Well, we got to get over that and start letting these neighborhoods redevelop their own communities.
Important partnerships. All right, well, it is the final days of freedom for kids. Public schools are back in session on Tuesday. Parents are cheering everywhere. With a competitive
most wonderful time of the year.
Well, the competitive marketing campaign to get kids to enroll in certain districts are still up and running around the state. How effective are they? I mean, you cannot go down a freeway without seeing billboards for different districts. Is this the most competitive, year that we've seen so far with the schools?
Well, you've got a bunch of districts that are desperate now, right? They're on that brink where if they don't get the right number of kids through the door, you've got to start making some major changes. And again, I think this points to this larger issue that we have, which is that we just have too many school districts, and we can't afford the overhead that we're carrying. And so, I mean, these districts are out there pushing really hard to get kids into those desks by count day, which is when
in
the
October,
money shows
right?
up. Yeah.
And some of them are doing some pretty despicable things. Sign up and get a pair of shoes, sign up and get an iPod or whatever. That's not how you should pick your kid's school. Excellent Schools Detroit and some other organizations do a very good job of trying to help parents pick the right school for their children. Problem is, as Steve says, you've got desperate districts. There are 70,000 more school desks in Detroit, both private, charter, and public, than there are students. That's an excess capacity of 70,000 seats for kids in the city of Detroit. So it's going to drive a lot of strange marketing campaigns. I think this idea that Snyder and Flanagan, the school superintendent Mike Flanagan, are working on to sort of consolidate districts, not the hybrid system he's got to keep their sort of independence, but make decisions on seating students across the wider area will take some of that pressure off.
So you think that'll ease off the competition?
It might. I mean, you're still going to have a lot of the competition is also coming from charters, right?
Right.
We've now got no cap on the number of charter schools that can be started in the state, and that means you've got a lot of new operators coming in saying, I want those kids, and so you're going to see, you talked about billboards. Listen to the radio in Detroit, in August, and every ad is for a new charter school saying, hey, we're going to teach your kid Mandarin, so you should enroll here. And again, there's no real way for parents to judge that stuff other than this Excellent Schools
And that's an
Detroit
important
report.
tool, but let's not, I don't think the goal is to diminish competition. Competition is one of the reasons you see school districts come in and say, oh, we're going to offer Mandarin, we're going to offer more programs. My point is, you should make your choice based on the academic performance and offering to the school, not an iPod or some other gimmickry. But you absolutely have to have school competition, or they get lazy again and start neglecting their
Well, and the competition,
step up their game.
the competition's partner is quality control, and that's the other place that we're lacking in Michigan.
But we're doing much better on.
See, I disagree with that.
And the kids are heading back to school on Tuesday.